Rumpole and the Quacks. When you come to think about it, there is no relationship more important than that of a man with his quack, or a regular medical attendant, as Soapy Sam Ballard would no doubt choose to call him. A legal hack relies on his quack to raise him to his feet, to keep him breathing, to enable him to cross-examine in a deadly manner, and then, gentle as any sucking dove, move the jury to tears. Without the occasional ministrations of his quack, the criminal defender would be but a memory, an empty seat in chambers to be filled by some whitewig with a word processor and a few unkind anecdotes in the bar mess. There might be tears shed around Brixton and the scrubs, but the judiciary would greet my departure with considerable relief. In order to postpone the evil hour as long as possible, I am in need of the life support of a reasonably competent quack. Mind you, I do a great deal for my own health by what is known in the Sunday papers as, quote, sensible lifestyle, unquote. I am careful to take, however rough and painful the experience may be, a considerable quantity of Pomeroy's very ordinary, which I've always found keeps me astonishingly regular. I force myself to consume substantial luncheons of steak and kidney pud and mashed potatoes in the pub opposite the Old Bailey, and I do this in order to ward off infection and prevent weakness during the afternoon. My customary exercise consists of a short stroll from the Temple Tube Station to Equity Court, and rising to object to impertinent questions put by prosecuting counsel. I avoid all such indulgences as jogging or squash, activities which I have known to put an early end to many a promising career at the bar. The quack by appointment to the house of Rumpole used to be a certain Dr. McClintock, a Scot of the most puritanical variety, who put me on the scales and sentenced me to a spell on nothing more sustaining than a kind of chemical gruel called thinovite. He did this with the avowed intent of causing a certain quantity of Rumpole to vanish into thin air and leave not a rack behind. I've never felt that this was a scheme likely to contribute to anyone's good health, and readers of these chronicles will recall that McClintock kicked the bucket not long after prescribing it. The poor old darling was your pessimistic brand of quack who foresees death following hard upon your next slap-up tea of crumpets and Dundee cake. So, you don't want a quack who is too gloomy and turns your mind to being carried downstairs in your box by sweating undertakers' men complaining of the weight. On the other hand, the quack who tells you there's absolutely nothing wrong with you, and you've got the liver of a 5-year-old, and you'll probably go on forever. That is also disconcerting. Does he protest too much? Is he just trying to keep up your spirits? And has he secretly informed she who must be obeyed that you have at the best 2 more weeks to live? On the whole, and to sum up, all you can say is that a man's relationship with his quack is a matter of mutual confidence and judicious balance. When Dr. McClintock was translated to the great geriatric ward in the skies, the responsibility for the health and well-being of the Rumpoles eventually passed to Dr. Ghulam Ramat. Dr. Ramat had been highly spoken of by McClintock, who had made him a partner in that small quackery which served the area round Froxbury Mansions. He was a short, thick-set man, perhaps in his late 40s, with greying hair and large, melting brown eyes behind heavy spectacles. He was the most optimistic, indeed encouraging quack I have ever known. "How are you, Rumpole?" Hilda approached at the nuptial couch. "I am dying, Egypt, dying." She who must be obeyed, whose title, as you will know, originally derives from the legendary and all-powerful Queen Cleopatra, answered me with a brisk, "Then we'd better call the doctor." "Call nobody," I warned her, wincing at the deafening sound of my own voice in competition with the vacuum cleaner. "I am remaining in bed. There is nothing on today except a chambers meeting to consider the case of a Mrs. Whittaker who wants to come in as a pupil to Erskine Brown. That is something worth missing. If Henry telephones, tell him that Rumpole's life is ebbing quietly away. "Oh, stuff and nonsense, Rumpole. You drank too much, that's all." Was that all? My head felt as though I had just received a short back and sides from the mad axeman of Luton, and a number of small black fish seemed to be swimming before my eyes. No doubt it was all because the Lord Chancellor, in a moment of absent-mindedness, had decided to make Hoskins a circuit judge. Hoskins, the colourless and undistinguished member of our chambers, mainly concerned with the heavy cost of educating his 4 daughters, had never found it easy to come by or do his briefs. Now, presumably on the basis that if you can't argue cases, you'd be better off deciding them, Hoskins had been elevated to the circus bench. The net result was a party in chambers at which the large and hungry-looking daughters Hoskins appeared and giggled over their sherry. This soiree was followed by a longer and more serious session in Pomeroy's, which had ended once again, I regret to say, with Henry and me recalling the great hits of Dame Vera Lynn. So now I turned my face to the wall, closed my eyes, and knew what it was like to stand loitering on the edge of eternity. "And how is the great barrister-at-law feeling now?" I was awoken from a troubled doze by a voice which sounded like that of an actor playing the part of an Indian doctor. His dialogue also had the sound of words invented to create a character. This was my first meeting with him, but in all our subsequent encounters I felt that there was something unreal, almost theatrical, about Ghulam Ramat, and the way he pronounced the absurd title he always insisted on giving me, barrister-at-law. I am, I confess, to the smiling character at my bedside, feeling like death. Temporary, sir, a purely temporary indisposition. No need to fly the flag over the Old Bailey at half-mast yet awhile. Tomorrow they will be rejoicing there. The crowds in the street will be cheering. Words will go round. The great barrister-at-law is returned to us stronger than ever. I have told your good lady while you were sleeping, sir. From the look of him, your husband strikes me as strong as a horse. Now, I had a lifetime's experience of the evil after-effects of overindulgence in Pomeroy's plonk, but they had up till now not included the presence of an Asian quack doing Peter Sellers impressions at the Rumpole bedside. I appealed to Hilda, who had joined the party. "Did you tell Dr. Ramat Ghulam, a medical doctor, Bachelor of Arts at the University of Bombay? A professional like you, sir, but not with a title so imposing and universally feared as barrister-at-law. Did you tell Dr. Ramat that I was feeling near to death?" I asked Hilda. "Ah, we are all near to death." The thought seemed to cause the doctor a good deal of amusement. He began to laugh, but suppressed the sound as though it were somehow impolite, like a belch. "But no doubt Mr. Rumpole will survive us all. Sit up, please. Will you do me the honour to let me listen to your chest? Oh, what a lung you have there, sir. It is a pleasure to listen to your hearty breathing. No doubt about it, you will go on forever." Oh, really? I must say the man had cheered me up considerably. "So there's nothing seriously wrong?" "Nothing at all. I diagnose a severe attack of the collywobbles, brought on by food poisoning, perhaps." "Food poisoning?" she who must repeated unbelievably. "For which I prescribe 2 Alka-Seltzers in a glass of water, strong black coffee, a quiet day in bed, and even more than the usual kindness and consideration from your lady wife. And tomorrow we shall say the barrister-at-law is himself again." When she had seen the medical man off the premises and returned to the sick-room, I restrained myself from telling Hilda that for her to treat me with more than her usual kindness and consideration wouldn't greatly tax her ingenuity. Instead, I gave her a weak smile and quaffed the Alka-Seltzer. "What a very charming and sensible quack," I said, as I effervesced quietly. But events were soon to occur which placed considerable doubt on the charm and good sense of Dr. Ghulam Ramat. The following facts emerged during the subsequent proceedings. At 10:30 a.m. on the day in question, the waiting room in the local surgery was full of assorted bronchioles, flus, eczemas, rheumatics, carbuncles, and suspected and feared antisocial diseases. The receptionist, a Miss Dankworts, was seated behind her desk in charge of the proceedings. The names of the doctors were written upon an electric device on the wall behind her, and beside each name a red light flashed if they were engaged, or a green if they were available. At the moment with which we are concerned, Dr. Ramat's light was red, as he was seeing a Miss Marietta Liptrot, who had been waiting to be treated for a sore throat. She had previously been a patient of Dr. Cogger, but as he was busy, she had asked specifically for the Indian doctor. Miss Liptrot had been closeted with her chosen quack for about 10 minutes, when a scream was heard from behind Dr. Ramat's door. With her clothes somewhat disarrayed, she flew past the assorted complaints and the startled receptionist, and crying, "The beast! The beast!" rushed out of the building and into the wastelands around the Gloucester Road. The doctors were accustomed to press their buttons as soon as a patient left, but Dr. Ramat's light remained red for some time after Miss Liptrot ran out. When it changed to green and his next patient, a Mrs. Rodway, was admitted, she found the doctor nervous, apparently unable to concentrate on her urticaria, and looking, so the witness was to testify, as though he'd had the fright of his life. Toward the end of the afternoon surgery on that day, that is to say, shortly after 6 o'clock, I happened to call in to get a prescription for she who must be obeyed, whose blood pressure is inclined to rise, especially if I've overstayed my allotted time in Pomeroy's. The surgery was almost empty, but a youngish man in a blue suit was opening his briefcase on the receptionist's desk, and I saw it contained a number of printed folders, pill bottles, and a portable telephone. I took him to be the rep for a firm of manufacturing chemists, and he was rattling on about the wonders of a miracle cure for something or other, when Dr. Cogger's light went green, and he shot out of his door and recognized me. "Hello there, Mr. Rumpole." Tim Cogger had treated me on a number of occasions for temporary voice loss, the occupational hazard of Old Bailey hacks and opera singers. He was considerably younger than old McClintock, but he seemed to have inherited the leadership of the practice. Cogger was the hearty type of quack who once played rugby football for Barts, and seemed to believe in the short, sharp shock treatment for most illnesses. He was continually complaining that his patients were typical national health pill scroungers, and on my rare visits to him he seemed to regard a head cold as the mark of a wimp. "You're looking perfectly well," he told me, as though daring me to complain of anything. "I was looking for Dr. Ramat," I said. "He promised my wife a prescription." I'm afraid Ramat's gone home. He may not be back at work for a day or two. If it's for Mrs. Rumpole, perhaps I could help." Dr. Cogger then got the receptionist to look up Hilda's records and scribbled a new prescription in the most obliging manner. I then knew nothing of the dramatic events of the morning, but that evening it was certainly service with a smile down at the local quackery. In due course, Miss Marietta Liptrot sent in a complaint to the General Medical Council, alleging approaches made to her by Dr. Ramat far beyond the call of medical duty. With the ponderous tread which characterizes all judicial proceedings, that august body began to move towards the trial of my encouraging quack for serious professional misconduct. Meanwhile, life in Equity Court continued as usual, without any earth-shaking changes. Uncle Tom perfected his putts in the clerk's room, where Henry and Diane did their best to control their emotions, and only allowed themselves a few covert glances of mutual adoration as they unwrapped their sandwiches at lunchtime. Miss Liz Probert tried to start a movement to turn Chambers into a cooperative dedicated to the entirely fallacious principle that all barristers are created equal, but whenever she brought up the subject, Claude Erskine-Brown stuffed bits of his Walkman into his ears, and she was left listening to the distant twittering of Die Walkure. Phillida Erskine-Brown, our Portia, continued to star in a number of causes célèbres, and enjoyed a success which Claude took with manful resignation. Sam Ballard made out a list of do's and don'ts for members of chambers, which he pinned up on the notice board in the clerk's room. This included such precepts as, "Do not allow such articles as solicitors' letters or witness statements to be dropped into the upstairs lavatory." Well, sometimes there seemed to be no other place for them. "Do not be seen drinking with a lay client in a Fleet Street wine bar. This sort of thing brings chambers into disrepute." Well, it had been the 40th anniversary of Fred Timpson's first court appearance under my auspices. Finally, to show that Ballard was deeply concerned about the environment, "Do remember the forests. Save paper." To which I had added, on my return from Pomeroy's after the glass or two with Fred, "And don't waste it on bloody silly notices in the clerk's room." After which the list vanished mysteriously, no doubt to be recycled and re-emerge as a Green Party newsletter. "Rumpole, a word with you." Sam Ballard accosted me one morning. "I wanted to let you know Heather Whittaker has joined us as Erskine-Brown's pupil." He uttered this news with a good deal of awe and wonder, as though announcing that the Queen Mother had agreed to drop in afternoons to answer the telephone. "I just wanted to explain this to you. She is not young. She is taking up the bar in middle life, and she is a thoroughly nice type of person." "Oh, good," I told him. "We could do with a few of those round here." "I think you were away when we had the Chambers meeting and agreed to take her." "Yes," I remembered. "I was dying."
"Oh, really?"
I was afraid I detected in Soapy Sam's eye a glimmer of hope. "Yes, but I changed my mind. I'm not dying any more. Sorry to disappoint you."
Well, I want to make this quite clear to you. Mrs. Whittaker is, well, not the sort of person who would enjoy rough behaviour in chambers. Members coming in, perhaps from some wine bar, singing, and so on."
"You mean she doesn't like Dame Vera Lynn?"
"And I don't suppose she would relish a working environment where people scribble obscenities on notices pinned up in the clerk's room."
"Does it occur to you, Ballard," I said, "that the Whittaker woman may have joined the wrong profession?"
"She was at Girton."
This news seemed to me quite irrelevant.
"With my cousin, Joyce."
"Oh, well, this isn't Girton. She'll be in daily contact with murder, grievous bodily harm, and indecent exposure. She'll have to take in incest, adultery, and dubious magazines with her tea and buns. You're not seriously suggesting she's going to scream with horror at a piece of graffiti on the notice board, are you? Anyway, it wasn't obscene."
"Ah, there! I'm glad you admit you wrote it."
Ballard looked triumphant. "I admit nothing," I said. "So what's this new pupil going to specialise in? The theft of knitting patterns? Oh, excuse me, Ballard, I'm off to confer about a bit of gross indecency on the national health. Don't tell La Whittaker. She might have a fit of the vapours." In fact, I had a conference in a type of litigation new to me. During a life spent earning my crusts before some pretty unlikely tribunals, I had never yet appeared before the General Medical Council. But Dr. Ramat had telephoned me and told me he was in trouble. I had fixed him up with the dependable Bernard as an instructing solicitor, and he was even then waiting for me in my consulting room, an ailing medic who hoped that Rumpole would work the miracle cure. In all my troubles and tribulations, I had one thought to comfort me. I know an absolutely wizard barrister at law. Dr. Ramat was no longer smiling. He sat in my client's armchair looking somewhat thinner and older than when he had stood at my bedside. But he was still playing the Indian doctor in a way which he seemed to hope I would find entertaining. How could I be accused of such a dreadful thing? Me, Ghulam Ramat. All my life I have been a peaceful fellow. I have been anxious to please and to make trouble for no one. Perhaps you were too anxious to do what you thought would please Miss Liptrot, I felt like saying. Instead, I asked him to tell me about himself. He told me about his training in Bombay, his coming to England, and discovering there was a vacancy in old McClintock's practice. Dr. McClintock was a man who showed no prejudices at all. I said, "Do you mind taking on an Indian doctor in your very British practice?" "Certainly not," he told me. "You can be as Indian as you damn well please." I looked at the smiling client and had the strange idea that the exaggerated accent and vocabulary had been put on to oblige Dr. McClintock, who wanted to demonstrate his open-mindedness. "And how are things," I asked, "since Dr. Cogger's taken over?" "Oh, just the same." The smile continued. "Dr. Tim Cogger is a thoroughly good man, a chap with a fine sense of humour. You know what they say of him at Bart's. He was a great practical joker. Perhaps not a brilliant doctor, but are you?" "What? A brilliant doctor?" "Oh, most of us are not. Most of us are at a loss, more than we like to admit. But we try to be kind and cheerful and wait for the disease to go away. To be perfectly frank, that is how I treated the great barrister at law." "I'm afraid," I had to break the news to him, "Miss Marietta Liptrot doesn't seem likely to go away." "No, dash it all." His cheerfulness, which had come back as he described his professional life so candidly, had drained away like bathwater, leaving him disconsolate again. "Oh, what a pain in the neck, if I can be so jolly rude about a young lady." "Had you seen her before?" "No. And if I have to be honest with you, I hope and pray I never see her again." "What did she look like?" For an answer, he took out his wallet and handed me a cutting from the Daily Beacon. "First time," he said ruefully, "that I ever got my name in the paper. 'Indian doctor tried to strip and make love to me. Nanny tells of surgery antics,' blared the headline. The story went on. "Children's nurse Marietta Liptrot, 27, who works for a wealthy Kensington family, only had a sore throat, but Dr. Ramat had his own ideas about treatment. He made her lie down on a couch, she said in her complaint to the General Medical Council, and wanted her to pull down her knickers. Dr. Ghulam Ramat, 50, who only came to England 12 years ago, said, 'I have the best barrister in the country, and I shall fight this every inch of the way.'" I was looking at Miss Liptrot's photograph. A pale face with large, trusting eyes, and an upper lip drawn over slightly protruding teeth. This gave her a breathless and eager look. "I never took a shine to her, Mr. Rumpole, to be perfectly frank with you." "What's your situation, Doctor? Have you a wife?" "Had, Mr. Rumpole. There is poor hygiene in some of our hospitals, and I lost her. My son is in Bombay, studying. He hopes in his humble way to be a barrister at law, third class merely. Not in your league, I may say." To my embarrassment, I saw tears in the eyes behind his heavy spectacles. We hacks see clients at their most emotional moments, but remain oddly embarrassed when they start weeping. "So, what's our defence?" I was anxious to get back to business. "The same," he announced with great satisfaction, "as in E.M. Forster's fine work, A Passage to India." When I was up at Oxford studying night and day for my record-breaking 4th in law, I remembered a chap called Perkins who greatly admired this Forster. He told me that personal relationships were all-important, and if he had to choose between betraying his country or Rumpole, he hoped he'd choose his country. Happily, Perkins became a clergyman in Wales and didn't have to make this agonizing decision, but he did get me to read A Passage to India, the gist of which I was ashamed to say, now slipped my mind. "Oh, of course," I said, yes. Just remind me of the plot." Well, this English lady accuses an Indian doctor of raping her in the Malabar caves, the doctor reminded me. Ah, yes, of course. Yes, it all comes back to me. And what was his defence, exactly? That it all went on in her fevered imagination. Yes, I see. I was a little doubtful. And how did it work out? Oh, he was acquitted. You will enjoy a similar triumph, great barrister-at-law. Yes, well, let's hope so. I was by no means convinced. We've got to remember that this was a work of fiction. I then brought the doctor down to earth by trying to get his exact clinical reasons for asking a patient who had come in to complain of a sore throat to remove her knickers. When Dr. Ramat left me, he was in a mood of unbridled optimism. I wandered out into the passage with my mind set on a little refreshment at Pomeroy's. The door of Erskine Brown's room opened, and out stepped a well-groomed, neatly dressed grey-haired lady who greeted me with a friendly smile and carefully controlled cry of, Mr. Rumpole, isn't it? A piece of him, I told her. Oh, I've been so longing to meet you. I'm Heather Whittaker, Erskine Brown's pupil. I've taken to the bar rather late in life, I'm afraid. Yes, it's probably a profession for the aged, I consoled her. The young can't stand the pace. You're a legend, Mr. Rumpole. Of course you know that. I'm absolutely dying to hear you on your feet. Well, I said hospitably, why not pop along to the General Medical Council? I've got a doctor in trouble. Oh, I'd love that. She seemed genuinely enthusiastic. Of course, I've heard Erskine Brown on his feet. Oh, really? I said. Did you manage to keep awake? Just about. She allowed herself a small but charming giggle. With you, I'm sure I should be on the edge of my seat. What's your doctor been up to? Oh, I'd better not tell you. Our head of chambers says you shock easily. What nonsense! Her smile widened. I want to know all the gory details. I must say that Ballard was right about one thing. Our new pupil, Mrs. Heather Whittaker, seemed a nice type of person. My life at that time was bedevilled by women. Not only had a person of that persuasion got my unfortunate doctor in trouble, but a client of mine, similarly constituted, was becoming a pain in my neck. So, she's been ringing up again, said she who must be obeyed in threatening tones as I got home that evening. She? I asked with carefully simulated innocence. Who on earth's she? Of course I knew perfectly well. She was the worst driver who ever skidded her gleaming white Volkswagen off the Uxbridge Road, mounted the pavement, terrorized the passers-by, hit a municipal waste disposal bin and someone's mobile shopping basket, and finally crashed into a lamp-post. The driver's name was Mrs. Bambi Etheridge. Only Rumpole's skill and the fact that the chief prosecution witness lectured the lady chairman of the bench on the hopeless incompetence of women drivers led to her triumphant acquittal on the grounds of poor road surface and fast oncoming traffic. Whatever might be said of her as a driver, Mrs. Etheridge was a social menace. She was a generously built lady, who, as she moved, clattered with what I believe is known as costume jewellery, and gave off a deafening smell of what she was at pains to tell me was Deadly Sins by Saint-Just. Her hair was unconvincingly blonde, and her makeup strove to represent the effect of too much sunbathing in Florida. She spoke as though she were trying to attract the attention of a deaf and uncooperative waiter on the far side of a noisy dining room. "Mr. Rumpole," she bellowed as we came out of court, "you are an absolute sweetie. How can I reward you, Mr. Rumpole, darling?" I told her it was normal to do it with a cheque sent through her solicitors. "Oh, no, I mean something more personal. What about a naughty lunch? Just the two of us? Could you get a long afternoon off?" And do you enjoy scrumptious desserts as much as I do? Oh, good! All men enjoy scrumptious desserts, don't they? That's settled, then. I'll give you a tinkle. Are you in the book? I'm sure you are. Lunch, I said regretfully, for I'm particularly fond of lunch. No, I'm afraid that's impossible. The pressure of work, you see. Oh, come on, Mr. Rumpole. Give yourself a bit of fun, why don't you? Has anyone ever told you you're a very cuddly sort of barrister? My blood ran cold. I saw Mr. Ballard, our admirable instructing solicitor, avert his eyes in shame. And this woman was going in search of my telephone number. I fervently wished I had lost her case, and she was even now being led off to the dungeons. Mrs. Etheridge, please don't trouble yourself to telephone. I'm afraid I rarely lunch out nowadays. In fact, I do nothing except work. All work and no play makes Mr. Rumpole a dull boy. She slapped my wrist lightly. And I'm sure you're not that, are you? Oh, be seeing you. And with that she was gone, with a whiff of deadly sins, a carillon of costume jewellery, and the relentless beat of her high heels on the entrance hall of the Uxbridge Magistrates' Court. 3 evenings later the telephone rang in Froxbury Mansions. Hilda answered it, frowned with extreme displeasure, and handed me the instrument with a grim, "There's a woman asking for you who rejoices in the name of Bambi Etheridge." "Oh," I said weakly. "What does she want?" "God knows what she wants with you, Rumpole. You'd better ask her." "Yes?" I barked into the instrument in a way which I hoped would put an end once and for all to the hideous notion that I am in the least cuddly. "Rumpole speaking." "Oh, dear." The Etheridge menace appeared to coo down the line. "Is it a bad moment? Are you with your wife? Ought I to have pretended to be the waterboard or something?" "No," I said firmly, "I don't think you can." "Can what, Mr. Rumpole? What are you suggesting? I only rang to invite you to lunch." "I don't think you can get costs against the police," I said. Yes, I know you won, but you did hit a lamp-post. It was quite a reasonable prosecution to bring. I'm sorry, that's my final legal opinion." "Oh, of course," Bambi purred understandingly. "You can't talk now, can you?" "I'll ring again." "Don't do it," I said. "You'll be throwing good money after bad by appealing." "What a thing to say. You're not bad money, are you, Mr. Rumpole? I'll ring again when you're not in the bosom of your family. Bye." "Stupid woman," I said when I put the phone down. "She wants to appeal on costs." "Oh, yes." Hilda looked at me with profound disbelief. "Is that why she called you my lovely husband?" "She didn't." "She did to me. I said, 'Hilda Rumpole speaking,' and she said, 'Oh, yes. And is your lovely husband about by any chance?'" "Oh, look, Hilda, I felt called upon to defend myself on a most serious charge of which I was undoubtedly innocent, having been put in the frame by the appalling Bambi. She is only a customer." "Well, that poor girl was only a customer of Dr. Ramat's, wasn't she? And look what happened to her." And she who must be obeyed adjourned for supper, clearly having made up her mind without the need for further argument. I did get taken out for an expensive lunch not long after that fatal phone call, and I was invited by a lady whose brains and beauty far exceeded the modest attainments in either of those departments by Bambi Etheridge. Mrs. Phillida Erskine-Brown, Q.C., our Portia, knocked at my door in chambers late one morning and said, "Come on, you old devil, I'm taking you out to lunch." Expecting a couple of sandwiches at Pomeroy's, I was surprised when she said, "Savoy grill suit you, would it?" "Oh, well," I admitted, "if we're really roughing it. But what's come over you, Portia? Are they putting you on the High Court bench?" "They're not putting me anywhere," she said. "The question is, where am I putting myself? I'm just about fed up, Rumpole. I've had it up to here. So we're going out to spend what's left of Claude's money, and I hope he finds that boring." With which enigmatic statement she set off along the Strand at a pace so brisk that I had to break into a trot to keep up with her. It was not until we were seated on the plush and had our hands round a couple of cocktails that Phillida started to unburden herself. "Rumpole," she said, "tell me honestly, am I boring?" "Ah, whatever gave you that idea?" "Am I a rut?" "Oh, scarcely." "Humdrum? Would you call me humdrum?" I looked at our Portia. Her hair was reddish, inclined to gold. Her face, that of one of the most intelligent pre-Raphaelite models, had grown, I thought, finer in the years since I had known her. The formal white blouse and dark suit, combined with the horn rims she used to read the menu, merely added to that charm which had in the past completely turned the heads of such connoisseurs of feminine beauty as the Hon. Mr. Justice Featherstone. As I looked at her, the only wonder was how, all those years ago, she had been put in the club and then married by a character as unexotic as my learned friend Claude Erskine Brown. Run-of-the-mill. Am I run-of-the-mill? You are certainly not, Portia. Apart from her beauty, Mrs. Erskine Brown had brains. Not for nothing had I named her Portia. When she spoke up for the defence, the general opinion in the jury box was that if a nice girl like that was on his side, the villain in the dock couldn't be nearly as black as he was painted. When prosecuting, she could pot the prisoner with all the aplomb of the avenging angel on a good day. Men, she now said, are all the same. Oh, are we? I'm not sure I'm exactly like Claude. Oh, perhaps not you, Rumpole. You're not really interested, are you? Not interested in what? In what everybody else who happens to be male seems to spend their time thinking about. Sex. Oh, that, I said, and gave a small shudder of fear at the thought of returning home to be cooed at over the telephone by Bambi. They're all the same. Take that wretched doctor of yours. Oh, Dr. Ramat. A woman has only to wander into his surgery with a sore throat, and he's trying to get into her knickers, just like Claude. Claude looks after people with sore throats. I wasn't following her drift. I'll get him, though. I'll cross-examine the life out of him. He'll be struck off for 10 years. Claude? No, Dr. Ramat. Well, what's Dr. Ramat got to do with it? Well, I'm prosecuting him before the General Medical Council. First rate. I tried to sound enthusiastic, but I saw the unhappy doctor's hopes fading rapidly. I'll have a foeman worthy of my steel. Oh, I'm sorry, faux person. You've got to be so careful when you talk to lady barristers nowadays. I don't know how you could defend a person like that. Portia, you know I have to defend a person like anyone. But you couldn't defend a real snake. Dr. Ramat? No! And she added in such a tone that I came to the conclusion that hell hath absolutely no fury like a scorned Mrs. Phillida Erskine Brown, Q.C. Claude! Oh, all right, I said. What's Claude done now? As the waiter had set smoked salmon and Sancerre before us, it seemed a suitable moment to get on with putting the indictment. By way of answer, Mrs. Erskine Brown opened the slender black briefcase she had brought with her and produced a copy of a somewhat lurid magazine called Casanova. On the cover of this publication, a bikini-clad young woman disported herself with a medicine ball, both articles looking as though they had been inflated with a bicycle pump. Let me read you this. Phillida flicked through what were, no doubt, distressing pages of photographs, and came to rest among the advertisements, which, when I got a chance to examine them at my leisure, were mostly of the Lonely Hearts variety. Barrister, good-looking and young at heart, Phillida read in tones of such disgust that they almost put me off my lunch. In a rut, bored with the humdrum of married life, seeks a new partner for the occasional fling. Country walks, opera-going, 3-star restaurant treats, and all the other pleasures of life. Tall and slender preferred. Right with the photograph, if possible, too. And there's a box number. There you are. Read it for yourself if you want to." She almost threw the exhibit at me, drained her wine-glass at a gulp, and ordered us both a refill from the waiter. I glanced at it as I asked, "So, how do you connect this with Claude?" "Well, it's obvious, isn't it? He's a barrister and opera-going." "Oh, Portia, there are about 4,000 barristers, and some of them must go to the opera. I don't think, Mrs. Erskine-Brown, that your evidence is absolutely conclusive." "I found this in his room in chambers, Rumpole," Phillida said between gritted teeth. "Now, what further proof do you want?" "Oh, I see. This last piece of testimony did seem to have landed the unfortunate Claude in the manure. Well, I admitted things are beginning to look rather black for the accused." As I said this, I was glancing further down the pages of Casanova, and found boxes announcing the service of escorts and ladies equipped to give massage treatment in the hotel or home. These announcements were embellished with photographs, and one struck me as familiar. It was under the heading, "Naughty Marietta will keep you company at dinners out or business functions." There was a snap of this companionable girl. Her hair had been done over more elaborately than when she appeared in the Daily Beacon, but there was no mistaking the wide eyes and small, even features and slightly protruding teeth of Miss Liptrot, the girl who was about to bring about the downfall of Dr. Ramat. During the beef and Beaujolais, our Portia rattled on about her husband's character defects and his pathetic failure even to be unfaithful without advertising for it in the public prints. Then, perhaps, feeling that she had confided too much, she remembered a conference in chambers, paid the bill, and left me. She went so hurriedly, in fact, that I found myself still in possession of the copy of Casanova, and I finished the Bruy, which would never have been seen dead in Pomeroy's, and again contemplated the features of the undoubted Miss Liptrot. Dr. Ramat's case seemed to follow me around that day, for glancing across the restaurant I spotted the large, muscular and jovial figure of Dr. Tim Cogger, lunching profusely with someone I recognized as the fellow with the briefcase who had apparently been trying to flog his pills and potions round the quackery. I raised what remained in my glass in salutations, but Dr. Ramat's senior partner, although he glanced in my direction, seemed to have noticed me not at all. When I got back to my room in chambers, I popped Casanova up on my desk, got a line from Henry, and started to dial. I heard a ringing tone, and as I was saying, "Is that the Naughty Marietta escort service?" I was aware of the door opening, and our head of chambers sidled into the room and stood agape as I heard the whispered reply, "Yes, this is Marietta speaking." "Marietta Liptrot, I presume?" "Who are you? Are you the newspapers?" No, I promise you, just someone in need of an escort. I heard from a friend of mine that you were a very companionable young lady." "Oh, well, yes, I suppose that's all right." There was a pause, but no denial of the name. "When's the function?" Well, it's not for me, actually." I raised my voice slightly and turned to smile at the intruder. "It's for a friend of mine. He wants to take you along to add a little colour to a ladies' night at the Lawyers as Christians Society. Call you back with the details. Nice to talk to you, Miss Liptrot." I put down the telephone.
"Rumpole, is that your idea of a joke?"
"Well, you shouldn't have been standing there listening to a private conversation."
"I couldn't help hearing that you were using Chambers' telephone facilities to call up an escort agency."
"Of course you could help it. You could have beaten a hasty retreat."
"Rumpole, you are a married man."
"Oh, that has not escaped my attention."
"I don't ask why you should feel the need to do that sort of thing."
"Oh, good. Nice to chat to you, Ballard. Now, if you don't mind closing the door on your way out." He moved toward the exit and then paused.
"Rumpole," he said solemnly, "don't you think you ought to make a clean breast of it to Hilda?"
A clean breast of what?
The fact that you're troubled by those sort of, needs.
Ballard, I looked at the man with pity. When you next feel the need to talk absolute balderdash, why don't you go and make a clean breast of it to matey? He went then, but he was back in a twinkling, his head round the door.
I forgot why I dropped in, he confessed.
On the chance of ear wigging a salacious phone call, I suggested.
No, it wasn't that. Now I remember. I've had a word with Mrs. Whittaker. It seems you asked her to take a note for you in the GMC case of yours. Are you sure it's not distasteful in any way?
I promise. She can resort to earplugs for the more sensational parts of the evidence. When I was finally relieved of Ballard's company, I continued a close study of infectious mononucleosis in the Principles and Practice of Medicine, which I had got out of the library. Then I called on Mrs. Erskine Brown to return the incriminating magazine she had left with me in the restaurant. "There you are," I said, when I entered the comfortably appointed QC's room Phillida inhabited apart from her husband. I dropped the distasteful magazine on her desk. "You left the vital evidence in the restaurant. What are you going to do to the unfortunate Claude? Confront him with it?" No good at all. She came to a quick legal decision. He'd only say it wasn't him, or something equally devious. No, I shall trap him with it. Leave him absolutely no way of escape. Traps were being set all around by Phillida. Not only for Claude, but for the unfortunate Dr. Ramat as well. One evening, as we sat over our chops in Froxbury Mansions, Hilda said, "I've arranged for you to see Dr. Cogger." "Why on earth?" "Well, you certainly can't see Dr. Ramat. I don't know why on earth you're defending him." "I'm defending him, Hilda, because he is in trouble. Anyway, that Marguerite Ballard rang up and said Sam was worried about you. You'd seemed rather strange lately." "What were you doing strange, Rumpole?" "I suppose phoning up escorts," I answered her through a certain amount of chop and mashed potato.
"What did you say?"
I said I suppose I was feeling out of sorts. I'd changed my mind about taking Hilda into my confidence. It would have taken too long, and she might well not have accepted my evidence. So evening surgery found me, ever obedient, waiting for the green light to flash beside Dr. Cogger's name. I sat among people with varying degrees of illness, coughing and sneezing their way through outdated copies of Punch, the Sunday Fortress Cooking Supplement, Good Housekeeping, and the Illustrated London News. The flats and bedsits around the Gloucester Road had handed over their sick and dying. Then I put down the back number of Country Life that hadn't been holding my attention and saw what surely must have been an unusual sight in a doctor's waiting room, the lurid cover of Casanova. "Do you take this regularly?" I approached the receptionist with the dubious periodical in my hand. "Of course not. As a matter of fact," she gave a small smile at the expense of the medical men, from whom she obviously felt as aloof as she did from her patients, and whispered, "The cleaning lady found it in one of the doctor's rooms. It should never have been put out." The green light flashed, and I was admitted into Dr. Cogger's presence, with the folded Casanova swelling my jacket pocket. "Well, Mr. Rumpole, what seems to be the trouble?" The doctor was as cheerful and hearty as ever. "I don't know. Failing eyesight, perhaps. I thought I saw you having lunch in the Savoy Grill, but I must have been mistaken. You didn't seem to recognize me when I raised my glass to you." "The Savoy Grill?" He smiled at me. A big man with huge hands and a surprisingly gentle voice. "Oh, that's a bit out of the class of a struggling GP." "So it wasn't you, then?" "Aha! I hardly think so." He shook his head. "Now," he was turning over my notes, "it seems your wife made this appointment. What does she think's wrong with you?" "Well, someone told her I was behaving rather strangely in my chambers." "Behaving strangely?" "Well, yes, ringing up escort agencies." "Escort agencies? Oh, but Mr. Rumpole, why ever should you do that?" "Well, I suppose they thought I was looking for escorts." "Ah, you mean young girls to take out to dinner, that sort of thing? That sort of thing, yes. My dear Mr. Rumpole, a lot of men, perfectly decent chaps in my experience, feel the need of young, fresh, young company. Doesn't mean they're sick in any way, it's perfectly natural. Is that what you think? Oh, yes, I do, quite honestly. Yes, I thought it might be. Oh, did you? His smile faded. He gave me a look I thought of some unease. Of course, that may have been because I was being such a terse and unforthcoming patient. Yes, when I saw that magazine Casanova in your waiting room. Oh, that. He was smiling again at full beam. I can't think how it got there. Well, your receptionist said it was found in one of the doctor's rooms. Well, Mr. Rumpole, my partners are big boys now. I really can't be expected to nanny them. Now then, what would you say your problem is medically? Medically, I told him, I can't sleep. I seem to wake up around 1 o'clock in the morning and worry about poor old Dr. Ramat. Oh, my dear Mr. Rumpole, why should you worry? Well, I suppose because I'm defending him. For the first time, Dr. Cogger looked startled and unsure of himself. You are? He frowned. Hadn't realized that. Perhaps we shouldn't have been talking about it. I've been asked to give evidence. Oh, for the doctor? I didn't think we'd asked you. No, well, for the council. I just told them what I knew. I certainly don't want to make things any more difficult for Ramat. Look, I'll write you out some pills, perfectly harmless. Just take one when you wake up in the middle of the night. At least that should stop you worrying. About Dr. Ramat? Oh, if you can manage it. Yes, I know, it's distressing for all of us when a doctor goes off the rails. Rumpole, I'm terribly worried. Oh, dear. Worried and, frankly, mystified. It didn't take much to mystify Erskine Brown. And as we sat together in Pomeroy's, our day's work done, I waited to hear what details of our life on earth was puzzling him at the moment. It's about Philly. She's taken to calling herself the Rut. The what? The Rut. I come home, there'll be a note. Gone round to Margot's, so I don't bore you to death. The Rut. Why do you think she calls herself the Rut? I have no idea. Do you think it has some amorous significance? I looked it up in the Oxford English in the Bar Library. It refers, Rumpole, to periods of sexual excitement in certain animals. Well, didn't you ask your wife what she meant? Of course. Well, what did she say? That I should know, if anyone did. And you found that reply enigmatic? I certainly did. I looked at the man. I wouldn't have thought Claude had any special talent for lying, but he spoke with apparent conviction, and not an eyelid was battered. She's also begun to ask me about country walks. Say again. She says, when are you going out for another country walk, Claude? She knows that country walks are just not my scene. No, I shouldn't have thought so. They tire you out, and you get your shoes dirty. Whatever gave her the idea I want to go tramping around the countryside? Do you know, I really am worried about Philly, Rumpole. Do you think she ought to see a doctor? I think, I told him, that she's about to see about a dozen of them in the General Medical Council. And I'm sure she'll do this case like she does all her cases, brilliantly. And she'll have you stitched up too, Claude, I thought, as I looked at the man, who still seemed to be seeing his perilous situation through a glass darkly. I left Pomeroy's, and when I disembarked from the bus and was making my way toward the mansion flat, I saw Dr. Ramat hurrying along the street in front of me. I called out, and he turned like a startled hare, and then managed a smile of greeting. Ah, the barrister at law, and looking extremely fit, if I may say so. I wanted to see you. There's a question that I should have asked. Mr. Ballard was trying to get hold of you at the surgery. Alas, I am seldom there now. The patients don't seem too dead keen on seeing me. But shall we walk along? I have an appointment. Yes, all right. It's about Dr. Cogger, I said, when we were on the move. Did you and he have a quarrel about anything?" Dr. Ramat walked a few steps in silence, and I prompted him. "Look, if I'm going to defend you, you'd better trust me." Well," he admitted, we did have a few words once about the drugs." "Oh, what about the drugs?" "He was always wanting me to prescribe—" Here he mentioned a number of long Latinized trade names, which went, I have to confess, in at one of my ears and out at the other. They were very expensive drugs, most of them from March mains, and I told him that my patients would be just as well off with a few kind words and a couple of aspirins." "Oh, how did he react to that?" "Oh, badly. He got in a most terrible bait. He went so far as to say that he did not want partners who were so pig-ignorant on the subject of new drugs. I'm sure it was said in the heat of the moment, and he didn't mean it exactly." We had reached the Star of Hyderabad, our local Indian eatery, and Dr. Ramat stopped in front of its red and gold door. "I'm most reluctant to part from you, great barrister at law, but, alas, I have an appointment." "Oh, I'll come in with you for a moment. You can buy me a beer." It would be a pleasure, but some other time, I'm afraid. This is an appointment of a private nature." He then bolted into the Star of Hyderabad, and resisting all temptations to peer in and see who he was dating, I headed off to an empty house, for it was one of those nights when Hilda was at her bridge lesson with Marigold Featherstone. At about 9 o'clock the phone rang, and a familiar voice said, "Is Horace there? It's Bambi." "This is a recorded message," I answered in a nasal and mechanical tone. "I'm afraid we are not available at the moment, but if you will leave your name and telephone number, we will get back to you as soon as we return from Tasmania. Please speak after the tone. Bleep." I then held the instrument at arm's length, and when it had finished twittering, laid it to rest. I woke up at 1 in the morning with Dr. Ramat's case going round and round in my head. I wondered about infectious mononucleosis, Dr. Cogger's strange reluctance to be recognized in the Savoy Grill, and his practical jokes at Bart's. What exactly had he done there? I imagined in those feverish hours a live lady substituted for a corpse on the dissecting table who sat up suddenly and made several students faint. I imagined trying to connect an escort agency with a row about prescribing expensive drugs with long names, and sleep eluded me. At about 2:30 I took one of Dr. Cogger's pills, which had no effect on me at all. The General Medical Council rules from an imposing headquarters in that mecca of doctors, the purlieus around Harley Street. I crossed Portland Place, walked down Hallam Street, and entered, wigless and without gown, the building in which top medics, playing for a while the part of judges, decide the fate of their fellow quacks. Up the stairs I found an imposing square chamber, decorated with the portraits and busts of solemn, whiskered old darlings who, no doubt, bled their customers with leeches and passed on the information to alarmed small boys that self-abuse leads to blindness. A large stained-glass window bore the image of a ministering angel, and 2 balconies, decorated with Adams-style plasterwork, held up the visiting public and a large body of journalists from such scandal sheets as the Daily Beacon, whose ears were pricked up for all the details of Dr. Ramat's unusual medical treatment. At tables, around 3 sides of a rectangle, sat the 11 judges, a few of whom were not doctors, but lay brothers or sisters from allied worlds such as nursing or sociology. Presiding at the top table was a lean and elderly Scot, the distinguished Sorbonne Sir Hector Macauliffe, who looked as though he would have found Calvin himself a bit of a libertine. I found myself seated at a small table, as in an American courtroom, with Dr. Ramat in embarrassing proximity to me. I've always found it a great advantage to sit as far away from clients as possible, as their suggestions on how to conduct the trial, if adopted, almost always prove fatal. On my other side, Mrs. Whittaker, grey-haired and clad in a decent black suit, was ready to take a note, a task she was to perform with admirable efficiency. At a table opposite me sat our Portia and the prosecution team. Between us, in the wide-open spaces of the room, was the solitary chair and small table at which the witnesses gave evidence in some comfort. We were all provided with heavy-duty microphones, so that our voices boomed and echoed as though we were in a swimming pool. "Yes, Mrs. Erskine Brown?" Sir Hector gave a nod of encouragement to the opposition, and Claude's filly stood up, and with an almighty swipe drove straight down the fairway. "This, sir, is a flagrant and distressing case of a doctor's violent and unprovoked sexual assault upon a young woman. When you have heard all the evidence, we have little doubt that you will find the charge of professional misconduct proved against Dr. Ramat beyond any shadow of reasonable doubt." So Phillida went on to tell the story of this young children's nurse, making naughty Marietta sound like some kind of junior Florence Nightingale, who called into the surgery with a sore throat and was told to lie on the couch, and when her knickers were removed, Dr. Ramat thrust his hand between her legs, tried to kiss her, and suggested that there was time for a quick one. Meaning sexual intercourse? Sir Hector was clearly not about to take the view that my client was offering his patient a small sherry. "That is what we asked the committee to infer," Phillida went on. "Miss Liptrot screamed and had to struggle to free herself from the doctor's embraces. She pulled her clothes back on, and she was still screaming, 'The beast, the beast!' as she ran into the reception area. There she was seen by the waiting patients and the receptionist, Miss Dankworth. After the incident, she suffered extreme bouts of nervous depression and was treated for that complaint by Dr. Cogger, a senior member of the practice, whom I shall be calling as a witness." "Very fair. She puts the case most fairly. And old Tim Cogger, he will be fair to me also." Dr. Ramat, since he arrived in court, had seemed in a confident mood. Now his optimistic words were caught up by the microphone, causing a glare of disapproval from Sir Hector and an ironic smile from Phillida, which seemed to promise stormy weather to come. I imposed a vow of silence on my client until he came to give his evidence, and then I heard Phillida ask if she might call Dr. Cogger first, as he was a busy man and had to get away to his practice. To this I readily agreed, as it would suit me very well to put the case I had worked out in the early hours to the senior doctor, before I came to cross-examine the mysterious Marietta. Dr. Cogger was apparently well known to Sir Hector, and to several members of the committee, to whom he nodded in a friendly fashion as he settled himself in the witness's chair. Yes, he told Phillida, he had known Dr. Ramat since he joined the practice, and always found him a pleasant and hard-working colleague, but, quote, within his limitations. He had been shocked at the complaint Miss Liptrot made when he had treated her for nervous depression following the incident in the surgery. Finally, with great seriousness, Mrs. Erskine-Brown asked, "And tell us, Dr. Cogger, if a young woman came to you with a sore throat, can you think of any reason for asking her to lie on a couch and remove her knickers?" There was a certain amount of chortling from the press gallery, at which an attendant in a commissionnaire's uniform shouted, "Silence!" Sir Hector glared savagely upwards, and Dr. Cogger shrugged his muscular shoulders and said with apparent sorrow, "I'm afraid I can't." I began my cross-examination. "Dr. Cogger, you are no doubt familiar with infectious mononucleosis, commonly known as glandular fever?" "Yes, of course." "Is it not so prevalent among young people that it is sometimes called the kissing disease?" "I think you may take it, Mr. Rumpole." Sir Hector spoke while still gazing up at the ceiling, apparently bored, "that we all know what glandular fever is." "Well, I should have thought so, sir. I tried a charming smile, which he didn't notice. "That is why I can't understand why anyone should find Dr. Ramat's method of examination in the least peculiar. Is not a symptom of glandular fever," I turned to the witness, "a sore throat?" "It can be," Dr. Cogger agreed reluctantly. "In fact, the patient may complain of a sore throat only." "That may happen. But if you suspect glandular fever, you may look for the other symptoms, such as swellings in the armpits and the groin." "You might. A competent doctor would do so?" "If he suspected mononucleosis, yes." "So when a young woman who complained of a sore throat came to a competent doctor, he might ask her to lie on the couch and remove her knickers so that he could examine her groin?" "It's possible." "Dr. Cogger, are you trying to assist this committee by telling us the truth?" "Oh, yes, of course." "Then why did you tell my learned friend, Mrs. Erskine-Brown, that you could think of no reason why Dr. Ramat should examine this young lady in the way described?" "Oh, steady on, Mr. Rumpole." Dr. Ramat did his best to keep his whisper away from the microphone, but he was clearly agitated. "You don't mean to attack Tim Cogger, do you? Such a decent fellow." "I mean to win this case for you if you will only shut up," I whispered back, and wished my client would go for a walk in the park until it was all over. "Well, Dr. Cogger, what's the answer?" "Well, I suppose the complaint you're suggesting didn't occur to me." "You mean you're a good doctor like Dr. Ramat within your limitations, one limitation being you forget the odd disease occasionally." Dr. Cogger flushed and moved restlessly, looking as though he'd have liked to have got me out on the rugger field and done for me in the scrum. Ramat whispered, "Oh, don't be so merciless, Rumpole." And Sir Hector came to the witness's rescue with, "I hope you're not suggesting that a routine examination includes the doctor trying to kiss his patient and suggesting there might be time for a quick one." The lugubrious Scot had, unhappily, put his finger on the weakness of our case. Instead of arguing, I decided that the best form of defence was the attack which I had planned during the sleepless watches of the night, and which, in daylight and under the cold eyes of the hostile medics, seemed even more perilous, and my client was probably going to hate it. "Dr. Cogger, you say you treated Miss Liptrot for nervous tension. What did you give her? A couple of aspirins?" "No, I prescribed Phobomorin, as far as I can remember." "Is that an expensive drug?" "Oh, I believe it's fairly expensive. I haven't looked up the price lately." "Is it supplied by the firm of manufacturing chemists whose representative buys you lunch at the Savoy Hotel?" The question took the witness by surprise, and he seemed to feel in danger. He had denied he'd ever been at the Savoy Grill, but now, on his oath, he seemed to feel an unexpected compulsion to tell the truth. He did his best by smiling confidently at Sir Hector and saying, "Peter Kellaway of Marchmains is a personal friend. We lunch together occasionally." "And when you last lunched together, who paid?" "I can't remember." "Oh, do try to think." "Well, it may have been Peter. Or may it have been his company, Marchmains, the manufacturing chemist?" "Mr. Rumpole." Sir Hector spoke as though I was a backward medical student who insisted on asking questions about housemaid's knee in the brain surgery class. "We're here to decide if your client made a sexual assault on his patient. What on earth have Dr. Cogger's lunches at the Savoy got to do with it?" "Yes, I quite agree, sir. Those questions can't possibly be relevant." Counsel for the prosecution arose in all her glory. "One at a time, please, Portia." I managed a resonant whisper across the room and then turned on the elder of the kirk. "It is a well-known fact that in any trial questions which may seem irrelevant at first lead straight to the truth, however deeply it is buried. Therefore, wise judges are extremely reluctant to interrupt a cross-examination by the defence, Less experienced tribunals are, of course, frequently tempted to do so. I got a look from the presiding Scot which seemed to indicate a desire to sentence me to a long stretch in the Aberdeen Home for Incurables. But then he conferred with his legal assessor, a balding barrister in mufti, and decided to let me go on. Continue, Mr. Rumpole, provided the next question shows some relevance to this case. You said Dr. Ramat had his limitations. I attacked the witness again. Do you mean that he was unwilling to agree to prescribe certain drugs? We had some disagreement about drugs, yes. I thought his treatment often old-fashioned. You mean he wouldn't prescribe expensive drugs from Marchmain's? In the silence that followed, Sir Hector at last leant forward attentively, and the other doctors appeared interested. I thought they'd known cases of drug companies offering sweeteners to medical practitioners. Some of the drugs I thought we should use came from Marchmain's, I suppose? Yes, I suppose so. Tell me, did you only get expensive lunches out of it? Or did a little cash change hands occasionally? Oh, hold on, Mr. Rumpole, this is quite unnecessary. My client was clearly upset. Oh, do shut up, Ramat. Hostile witnesses can be coped with, but mutinous clients are intolerable. Then I regained my composure and smiled quite winsomely at Dr. Cogger. Well, Doctor, would you care to answer the question? Perhaps. Phillida rose and smiled at the seat of judgment in a way which was far more winsome than anything I could have managed. The witness should be warned that he needn't answer questions which might well... She picked up and inserted the distasteful words as though with a delicate pair of forceps. Might incriminate him. This was a grave tactical error by the fair prosecutor, because Sir Hector duly warned the witness, and Dr. Cogger came to the conclusion that it was a question which, with the best will in the world, he preferred not to answer. From then on, of course, his credibility content sank rapidly. Quite right. Ramat's behaviour was extraordinary. No need at all for Tim to answer such an impertinent question. You can't make an omelette without breaking eggs, I told him, and then turned to the witness. And because he refused to take part in your prescription racket, Ramat winced and sighed with disapproval again, you wanted to get him out of the practice. It's very hard to get rid of a partner, as you know, Mr. Rumpole. Dr. Cogger may have thought his answer clever. In fact, it was unwise in the extreme. Very hard, I agreed. Unless you can get him found guilty of professional misconduct. Mr. Rumpole. Dr. Cogger leaned back in his witness's chair. All his self-confidence returned as he said with great good humour, You're not suggesting I went into Dr. Ramat's room and tempted him into seducing me, are you? Don't ask me questions. I tried the snub brutal, and was pleased to see that the judges around us had been less than amused by Dr. Cogger's fantasy seduction. Just look at this, will you? This was a document unhappily familiar to the prosecutor. Another copy of that issue of Casanova, which had turned up both in Erskine Brown's room and Dr. Cogger's surgery. It was carried to the witness by one of the aged commissionaires with a marker in the relevant page. Do you see an advertisement there, headed Naughty Marietta? What on earth has this got to do with a case worth trying? Sir Hector had noticed the cover of Casanova and knew the devil's work when he saw it. If you listen, I told him, you will soon discover the answer. And I asked the witness if it didn't appear to be an advertisement for an escort service. It would seem so. And do you see a photograph of the young lady who calls herself Naughty Marietta? Yes, I do. Is that Miss Marietta Liptrot, the lady you treated for a nervous disorder and the complainant in this case? There was a long silence. Sir Hector looked at the ceiling. Other doctors examined their fingernails or sat with their pencils poised, waiting to write down the answer. Portia looked at me with a half-smiling tribute to Rumpole's ability to pull something out of the hat in the most unlikely cases. And Ramat, of course, whispered, "Stop the attack on poor Tim, Mr. Rumpole. It is quite uncalled for." "It looks like her," Dr. Cogger admitted at last. "It is her," I said. After all, I had confirmed the fact on the telephone. "This a children's nurse we've heard about. Goes out to dinner for money. Rather like you, Dr. Cogger." "Just what are you suggesting?" "Oh, you know quite well, don't you? I'm suggesting you paid this girl to stage the scene in Dr. Ramat's consulting room. The scream, the rushing out into the waiting room, the complaint and the nervous disorder, it was all an act, a put-up job, so that you could get Dr. Ramat out of your practice, because he would not cooperate. Did you suggest she should complain of a sore throat? Or was it just a bit of luck that Dr. Ramat suspected glandular fever? That's absolutely ridiculous. I didn't know of the existence of Miss Liptrot until after the incident took place." "Oh, did you not?" "This incident, we've heard, took place on March the 13th of this year. Will you look at the cover of this Casanova? What is the date on it?" Dr. Cogger took the magazine with some reluctance and announced, with even more hesitation, January of this year. And you know where this magazine was found, don't you?" Silence. "Well, we can ask Miss Dankworth, the receptionist, if you don't wish to answer." "I know. Will you tell the tribunal?" "Well, apparently it was found in the waiting room." "Of your surgery?" "Yes." I sat down then, next to a client who, far from congratulating me on a cross-examination of even more than my usual brilliance, sat with his head in his hands, murmuring, "Oh, Mr. Rumpole, you should not have put poor old Tim through the mill like that. There was no need, I told you that, no need whatsoever." "Nonsense, old darling, pull yourself together. You can't make an omelette without breaking eggs, as I told you." And then I had to leave him to stew, because Miss Liptrot, who had come into the room and was taking the oath, now demanded my full attention. The complainant was not in any sense beautiful, but she was young, her eyes were bright, her jeans clean and well ironed, and she seemed, even in the circumstances in which she found herself, unexpectedly cheerful. She admitted, in answer to Portia's gentle questioning, that she was a children's nurse who often went out in the evenings, as one of a number of friends who had got together to form an escort agency, which they had named, and this seemed to give her particular pleasure, after her. Looking at Miss Liptrot, I was discouraged to see what appeared to be an honest witness. I had fired all my ammunition at Dr. Cogger, and though severely holed below the waterline, he was not quite sunk. He had not admitted the conspiracy, and I would need to get Marietta to crumble if Dr. Ramat was to be back plying his stethoscope as usual. All right. I guess the more sensible doctors on the committee were thinking to themselves, perhaps she is an escort, which may mean she's a call girl. She's still entitled to have her sore throat seen to without being molested. Carefully, slowly, and with extreme tact, my opponent took the girl through her story. Now we were in the consulting room, and Dr. Ramat had asked her to lie on the couch. And what happened then? Well, he said he just wanted to see if I had any swellings. Asked if I'd mind him feeling. Did he remove your knickers? No, I think I may have pulled them down. And then? What happened then? I'm not quite sure. The witness frowned slightly and seemed to be doing her very best to remember. I think he went to a basin in the corner of the room to wash his hands. And what did you do? Oh, I ran screaming out the door. Marietta smiled at Sir Hector as though inviting him to join her in laughing at the silliness of her behaviour. What made you do that? Phillida was still admirably patient. Oh, I don't know, really. I'd been up late with a very boring gentleman who kept me up talking half the night about the mortgage rates. Oh, I was overtired, I think. My nerves are bad. I suppose I just lost control of myself. Had Dr. Ramat tried to kiss you? Don't lead, I grumbled, but the protest was unnecessary. Whatever lead Phillida gave, the girl was clearly not going to follow it. I'm sure he hadn't. Did he put his hands between your legs? Oh, no. Miss Liptrot looked shocked. I'm sure he didn't do that either. You apparently ran out of the room shouting, "The beast, the beast." Do you remember that? No, not really. If I did, I wasn't talking about Dr. Ramat. I'd met some other people who weren't very nice. Miss Liptrot. Sir Hector looked like an elder of the kirk who'd just been reliably informed that there is no such thing as hell, and that sin is now permissible. You made a statement to the General Medical Council to the effect that Dr. Ramat made improper advances to you. I looked around the court in the pause that followed. Dr. Cogger was now in the public gallery, leaning forward in his seat, looking as mystified as everyone, except the witness, who seemed to find her behaviour perfectly natural. Well, I'd made such a fuss in the surgery, I felt I had to give some reason for it. Otherwise you'd have thought me very silly, wouldn't you? But I always meant to tell the truth when I got here. And what is the truth, Miss Liptrot? Phillida's line sounded less like a question than a cry for help, but help for the prosecution was not forthcoming. The truth, Marietta now seemed to have no doubt about the matter. The truth is that Dr. Ramat always behaved like a perfect gentleman. It was at this point that Phillida, after a whispered consultation with her instructing solicitor, threw in the towel. In view of the evidence which has just been given, we do not feel it would be right to continue with the case against Dr. Ramat. The battle was over, and I had no idea how I had come to gain such a decisive victory. Mr. Rumpole, Sir Hector was looking at me with slightly less than his usual disgust. During the course of your cross-examination, you made certain serious allegations against Dr. Cogger. As I understand it, you suggest that he joined with this young lady in a conspiracy to frame, if I may use a common expression. Oh, by all means, sir. Frame puts it very nicely. Very well, then. To frame Dr. Ramat. In view of the evidence we've just heard, may we take it that all such allegations are now withdrawn? I was about to open my mouth when Dr. Ramat was up beside me, standing to attention and saying at the top of his voice, "Unreservedly withdrawn, sir. Dr. Tim Cogger is a fine man. He leaves this court without a stain on his character. My barristered law will confirm this without a moment's delay." Do you agree, Mr. Rumpole? Oh, yes. I may have sounded a little mournful as my brilliant defence went out of the window, but I resigned gracefully. Yes, I agree. Not a stain on the doctor's character. A passage to India, I reminded Dr. Ramat when we went for a celebratory bottle of plonk in a wine bar off the Marylebone Road, ends with the girl who's meant to have been raped by the Indian doctor withdrawing her whole story in court. Such a brilliant writer, old EMF, Dr. Ramat agreed. Always so true to life. Do you think that naughty Marietta's read the book? Well, sir, perhaps. There was a pause as I filled my mouth with the wine, a product perhaps of the same sun-starved vineyard which grew the Chateau Thames Embankment grape. Then I said, "Who do you think put her up to it?" "Oh, Tim Cogger, undoubtedly." Dr. Ramat smiled tolerantly. "He did want to get rid of me. He thought I had tumbled to why he was wanting us all to use the matchmain drugs." "You think he hired Marietta?" I looked at the man, amazed at his conversion to my view of the case. "Oh, I'm sure he did so." "How are you sure?" "She told me." I finished the glass. Soon I should finish the bottle. "You've talked to her about it?" "Oh, certainly. I have taken her out to dinner on a number of occasions. We go to the Star of Hyderabad. It was not something I thought you would wish to know." "Oh, why?" "I knew I had the most brilliant barristered law. I knew you would win my case, but I did not want to win by rubbishing poor old Tim Cogger. I wanted to keep my partnership, you know. I want to get on well with all the chaps in the surgery, Dr. Tim included. So it seemed the best way out was to persuade Miss Liptrot to tell the truth, which is that nothing happened. It seemed to me such an easy way to win the case, but far too unsubtle, of course, for a brilliant barrister at law like yourself. But at least I managed, sir, to make an omelette without the breaking of a single egg. I looked at the chap with a sinking feeling. What if the infection spread and all clients got themselves off without any help from the learned friends? The future of the legal profession began to look bleak. There's one other thing you might tell me, I asked as I stared at the quack in amazement. How much did you give the lady to persuade her to tell the truth? I gave her, as you might say, sir, all my worldly goods. What are you talking about? Don't babble. To be honest with you, Mr. Rumpole, do not babble. Miss Marietta Liptrot is as charming and honest as she is beautiful. She has done me the honour of agreeing to be my wife. The ceremony will be at the mosque in Regent's Park, with the reception to follow at the Star of Hyderabad in the Gloucester Road. You and your good lady are cordially invited. Oh, and Dr. Cogger, of course. I began to get the picture. Oh, yes, indeed. All the surgery will come. And I hope that Tim Cogger will propose the toast to the happy couple. I shall certainly ask him. And in all the circumstances, I thought it fair to say, I don't see how he can refuse. Rumpole, something distinctly peculiar has happened. You mean you lost Ramat, Portia? No, not your fault, I assure you. That case took on a life of its own. We were both left with omelettes on our faces, in a manner of speaking. No, it's not that exactly. Look, I'd better tell you and see if you can offer any sort of explanation. You know I was going to lay a trap for Claude. Yes, you told me, when I trembled for the fellow. Well, it didn't really come off. Our Portia settled herself in the client's chair in my room. I lit a small cigar and prepared to listen to her account, which went more or less as follows. She had written an answer to the advertisement in Casanova to the box number indicated in the following terms. Dear barrister bored with married life, I am slim, intelligent, and considered attractive. I am more than ready for the occasional fling, but I can think of better ways of spending an evening than going to the opera. Sorry I haven't got a photograph, but I've had no complaints about my looks. Suggest we meet at a place convenient to you in the Temple churchyard by Oliver Goldsmith's tomb, 5:30 next Thursday week. We'll both wear red carnations. I look forward eagerly to the ensuing fun and games. I'm also in a rut and bored to tears with married life. She sent this missive, sure it would trap the errant Claude, and when he showed up overexcited with a flower in his buttonhole, she'd let him have it to some considerable effect. The odd thing is, Rumpole, I went to the churchyard with my red carnation, and Claude never turned up. Do you think he got wind of what I was up to? You didn't say anything to him, did you? Now, Portia, would I? I don't know. You men always stick together. I waited for about half an hour in the drizzle. Churchyard was empty. No one came? Well, I didn't see a soul. Oh, except that new pupil here. What's her name? Mrs. Whittaker. Yes, she was hanging about looking at the inscriptions on the tomb, and, you know, it was rather a coincidence. She was wearing a red carnation. Oh, did you speak? Oh, I think I said hello, and she wandered off. Perhaps she'd been to a wedding or something. Yes, perhaps. And then a vague memory struck me. I looked up Claude's alleged advertisement in the copy of Casanova I had brought back with my papers in the Ramat case, and read it through carefully. Then I read it through again. Portia, I said, you're a brilliant advocate, and your courtroom manner is irresistible. But it's no good lightly skimming the written evidence. You haven't read every word, every letter. Just look at this again. I handed her the document. Read it aloud, if you'd be so kind. Barrister good-looking and young at heart, in a rut, bored with the humdrums of married life. Now, just look carefully after the word barrister. Isn't there a small letter in brackets? Oh, well, yes, it looks like an F. It is an F. You were so sure you had Claude in the frame that you didn't notice it. F for female. It's a lady barrister in search of adventure. A lady barrister who shares Claude's room, which is why you found the magazine there. So it was a lady barrister who turned up wearing a carnation. I'm sorry, Portia. I'm afraid you disappointed her. Mrs. Whittaker? Well, the evidence seems conclusive. Poor old Mr. Whittaker. He must be of the humdrum persuasion. You know, perhaps we should take out a subscription to Casanova. We've learnt a good deal, haven't we, from a single issue. But Portia was off, smiling now in search of her husband. She might even be going to buy him lunch at the Savoy. People only seek out Rumpole when they're in trouble. There is little more to tell. Bambi rang once more to tell me that she had another little mishap with the white Volkswagen and was being done for dangerous driving. "Can't help, I'm afraid," I told her. "What you need for that is a brilliant QC. Only way to get off with your record. There's an absolutely scintillating silk called Sam Ballard. I might get him to take you on." "Oh, really? Is he cuddly?" "Sam Ballard? Oh, well known for it." And I told her, "He cuddles for England. Oh, and there's something else. He's in a rut, bored to tears with married life." A week later I was in the clerk's room talking to Uncle Tom, who, as usual, was practising putts into the wastepaper basket, when there was a tintinnabulation of costume jewellery, a clatter of high heels, and Mrs. Bambi Etheridge passed through on her way to Ballard's room. She flashed me a smile, but her mind was clearly on higher things, and she went up to her assignation, leaving us with her lingering perfume. Odd sort of pong." Uncle Tom was thoughtful. "A bit reminiscent of the red light district in Port Said." "It's Deadly Sins," I told him, "by Saint-Just." "Oh, is it really? Of course, I've never been to Port Said. I say, Rumpole, what a lot you know about women." "Not much," I admitted. "I am continually surprised." "I say—" Uncle Tom became so entranced by the thought that he failed to hold into the wastepaper basket in one. "I wonder if Ballard's making a play for her, and she'll come out screaming like the girl in your case. That'd liven things up a bit." "I'm afraid," and I was already feeling a touch of pity for Soapy Sam, "that Ballard will be the one who comes out screaming." But all was silent from upstairs. I could only think that I had brought together two people who needed and deserved each other.